What's up, everyone? Welcome to the My Favorite Horror Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Ackerman. We have a badass show for you today. Firstly, a few nights ago, I decided to change things up a bit and try out a new format for some of the episodes. And this is the first attempt at that, and I think it turned out great, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys to see if you guys like it. I know many of you out there are filmmakers or would like to be filmmakers or are in the horror business of some sort, so I've started hitting up horror creators to do a series of enlightening episodes where I pit different professions against each other in a healthy debate on the good and bad in dealing with the other profession. So this could be directors versus actors, painters versus graphic designers, producers versus screenwriters, and the ins and outs of those. So for the first one, I've thrown together filmmakers versus film festival directors in the ring to battle over the best and worst ways they can interact with each other. So if you're a budding filmmaker or someone who wants to start a film festival, this is some great insight into the minds of each side. So before we jump into it, if you like our podcast, please like, follow, share, and or subscribe to My Favorite Horror Movie on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you podcast. And if you truly love horror, then check out the My Favorite Horror Movie trilogy of books, where we've collected 150 essays by 150 horror legends and luminaries on the horror film that changed their lives. All right, so let's start off with filmmakers Brian Netto and Adam Schindler on the latest badass project that they have going on, and then we'll patch in Heidi Honeycutt and Miguel Rodriguez for episode 4, Filmmakers versus Film Festivals. Let's go. All right, so our first guest created the films Delivery, The Beast Within, and Intruders, which played at film festivals all around the world, including the LA Film Festival, Screamfest, Fight Fest, Toronto After Dark, Brussels International Film Festival, and Sitges. Most recently, they wrote and directed the Grey Cloud Island episode of Sam Raimi's 50 States of Fright, the horror anthology for Quibi. Please welcome Adam Schindler and Brian Netto.
Hey guys.
You guys can talk it up. Let's go.
we can talk.
Yeah. How's it going, guys?
It's going, man. Just quarantining. We're good, man. We're good. Just writing and quarantining.
Yeah. So and so, how are you keeping yourselves busy during this quarantine and not going mad?
You know, I'm working from home. My wife's working from home. We got a son, so he's pre-K, so it's not like I'm doing a lot of schooling, but it's mostly keeping him busy and then sneaking off to get a little writing done here and there. And I've been hyper creative. I feel bad when I said it because every time we talk to people, there's a lot of times people are having tough times dealing with everything. They're juggling so much, and then obviously the anxiety of what's happening, and then the uncertainty of paying your bills and all that stuff. But I've just been hyper creative during this process. It's been pretty remarkable that we've slowed down from post on the Quibi show so that I can watch shows again and then write again. So I found it. I've been very productive.
Yeah, myself. you're able to just watch shows finally and not have to
finally.
do.
I try not to watch too much. I feel like when we're in post on something, or if I'm supposed to be delivering something, if we were just handed something into just a script in, and so it feels kind of guilty when you're not working on it, when you're supposed to be working on it, and you have a deadline. It feels guilty to cut off and watch something. So I find myself grinding away. Even if I'm not making any progress, I just find myself grinding away on it. So once you hand it in, it's just like, okay, I can get off the Ferris wheel and just like, what's out there? Like, I'm so behind on stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
The clearing of your head portion after you hand something in is as important as the actual writing, because you need to like give yourself some time away from what we just handed the script into our manager last week, and giving ourselves some time away from it is super important, so you can come back and have a perspective on it and go, oh yeah, this scene needs to be here, and this scene needs to be here, and this changes this way. And distance creates some clarity.
I wrote a script in March, and then we kind of just tinkered with it in April, but we still kind of kept super separated from it for a while, just to refocus. And it's been kind of weird with time schedules and stuff. And you guys have families, but I don't have a family, so I was sleeping all crazy hours after a while, and it just became this weird shift of things, of just sleep patterns that it kind of started sucking the soul out of me for a second. It wasn't a depression, but it was like, oh, what? I'm just lazy right now. I only slept 3 hours, then I was up for 8, and I slept another 3, and I'm up for 8, and so, and Adam, so how are you dealing with this? So you guys are writing together, but what are you doing at home, with your time?
Yeah, I mean, my wife's working from home. We have 2 kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. So it's kind of runs the gamut from actual schoolwork. Luckily, LAUSD has been really, really good, with the homeschooling thing. So my daughter they handed out a computer, a Chromebook, and she has class every single day for a couple hours. My 3-year-old's a little bit tougher. We've gotten some stuff from her Montessori, just like little assignments and like tracing and what have you. So I mean, I'm big into schedules. Like that's my thing, and that's what keeps me on. And it's like I don't want to say I'm running this place like a military training, but it kind of is that way. It's the only way to get anything done, and the only way to like feel like you're moving through the day and progressing. So my wife takes the morning, I take the afternoon to work, and then they have school time and
thank God for
time.
Adam. Adam is the scheduler of the 2 of us. So it's he keeps the thing running.
If it was up to Brian, we would still be working on that. We would still be working on delivery.
Oh yeah.
The script is not quite right yet.
It's a balance, so you gotta have the 2 halves to make a whole.
Yeah. So you guys just you just 100%. Released over the past week or 2 your episode of 50 States of Fright, which is called Gray Cloud Island. Tell us about the story. I have not seen this show yet, so I'm probably gonna end this podcast and run off and watch it now that I have some time. Tell me about it.
I would suggest checking it out. Not just because we have an episode, but across the board. But across the board, all the filmmakers involved. Sam Raimi did the pilot of it. So
really?
For anybody who doesn't know what Quibi is an app. Everything on Quibi is made to be watched on your phone. Although I've read that that's going to be changing soon.
And next month. Next month you'll be able to cast.
Yeah, by next month is what.
So you can't watch on the computer. What I've read. You can't even watch on the computer.
Strictly your phone.
Oh, okay. So that's something interesting to discuss. Okay.
You can watch it from. I haven't seen it on an iPad, but you can watch it on an iPad, I guess. But it's like the phone version for the iPad, so it hasn't been scaled up quite. But nonetheless, it's meant to be watched on your phone. The show that we have an episode in is called 50 States of Fright. It's executive produced, and like I said, the pilot episode was directed and written by Sam Raimi. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's basically telling urban legends and ghost stories and what have you from all the 50 states. The first batch that they've released there's 5 states. Our state is Minnesota, which is our home state. So we lucked out with that. I'll let Brian tell you a little bit about what our episode is without giving away spoilers, but
yeah. I mean, it's we grew up not too far from Gray Cloud Island, so it's basically.
What is that? What is Gray Cloud Island then?
Well, this is what we knew of it when we lived there.
Okay.
Barely anything, which was the idea that it's an island it's in our same county, 10 minutes away, and a bunch of funky stuff happens there. Like it was so random, it didn't really register for us. But once we moved away, and obviously the age of the internet, things spread, and this series came about. Once we got the opportunity to come in and pitch, we started to dive back in, and we're like, oh, that's right. I mean, it was the kind of thing you heard about when you were a kid, but nothing really stuck because it was so random, and that's what we built into our story. So, for example, the true stories are there's everything from cults, devil worship, to a phantom pickup truck that will just drive around the island and chase people away, to strange lights, to carcasses, to KKK activity. It's a grab bag of urban legends. And so what we said is, well, the reason, most of the time
Gray Cloud Island
all on Gray Cloud.
Really?
All on Gray Cloud, which in and of itself is what makes it so unique. It's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle of horror stories. And so for the most part, you have most urban legends are based on like the woman in the white dress, and she'll come and chase you away at midnight. But this was just it was not very specific at all. It was everything. So our story, we built around the idea that 4 guys are dropped off for a fraternity initiation because everyone knows it's haunted, but no one really has a specific idea as to what the real haunting is or what the specific horror is. So we just built the idea that all these random things that happen on the island were basically sent out, or just stories made up by the townspeople because they're hiding a larger, darker secret. That's not giving anything away because that's just a jumping off point. And it's a lot of fun. I think more than anything, and they're all very different. Every single episode is so very different. Versus like if you watch Creepshow or Tales from the Crypt, they have a very specific feel and tone to them. That's basically that you'll find in every episode. This is different. Every filmmaker brings their own sensibilities. So ours is kind of a mashup of all of our sensibilities, which you grew up with action, thrillers, suspense, adventure stories. And so you'll find a little bit of everything in our story. Mm-hmm. It's very, very bloody. It's a lot of fun.
How long is it?
And I know a lot of our total episode is about 24 minutes long. Okay. The way Quibi breaks down it, specifically our show, their whole thing is, chapters or episodes that are between 5 and 10 minutes long.
Yes.
They're meant to be watched in line at the bank or on the bus or what have you. Obviously, they dropped it 6 weeks ago during the middle of a pandemic. So, that's unfortunate. But our episode specifically is 24 minutes long, told over the course of three chapters. Now, I know a lot of people who are going to be watching this are going, something made to be watched on a phone. But I'll let you know that everything that's on it is very cinematic. Like, specifically,
I saw the trailer.
Right. No, everything
looks
very
gorgeous,
cinematic. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it looks like a big. We shot it that way. We shot it to be shown on as big a screen as you could possibly watch.
Yeah.
You're on a phone. We were just like, what the hell? We're gonna shoot it the way we want it.
Yeah, that's great. You're cutting out a bunch, so hopefully you're right. Do you see that, Brian?
I see a little bit of it, yeah. But I mean, it's long story short, yeah. It's you see, if you've seen the trailer, the one thing I'll say is if you've not watched the trailer, don't watch it. Only because the trailer. I
barely watched the trailer. Yeah.
Well, it's fine. It's beautiful, but it's filled with a lot of spoilers. So I would say just go in fresh. But it looks
okay.
If you need no other attraction than the fact that Sam Raimi's back in horror for the first time since Drag Me to Hell,
exactly.
You shouldn't need anything more than that. And then everything beyond that, it's just very unique tales. And we haven't even gotten to the back half yet. The back half has stuff from Beck and Woods, the guys that did Quiet Place. They've got a segment, and a couple of others that are really interesting. So I would just say check it out. I mean, here's the thing: Quibi is free for the next 2 weeks. Sorry.
Okay.
If you sign up
for
now,
the first 2 weeks,
you get a 2-week free subscription.
Okay.
Doesn't cost you a dime.
Yeah, you guys are a great company all around.
Alejandro, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Bruges.
Oh yeah.
One of the Dead.
Yes.
He did a segment as well, which is a blast. And there's a couple of others that you'll dig. I mean, if you like horror stuff, it's
okay. So my main thing right now is like, okay, Brian, your favorite horror movie is The Evil Dead.
Yes.
Adam, what's your favorite horror film?
I'd have to say my favorite horror film is and everybody's gonna just shrug and like roll their eyes. The Exorcist, that's probably my favorite.
Why would I shrug?
No, I don't know. I was like, okay, just go.
No, that's
the old standby.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to have some weird esoteric movie for your favorite horror movie. It's like if he has Evil Dead, you have Exorcist. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's one of the best top 5 best horror movies of all time.
Yeah. Still scary to this day. I was literally just watching it today. It's it's terrifying. Organized religion, like just kind of the Catholic Church, is always just give me the GB creepies. Like I don't know.
So where I was going with it is that Brian, Evil Dead. I mean, I'm sure you grew up with Evil Dead. I grew up in it. Mm-hmm. You guys got to work with Sam Raimi. Tell me how you got involved with this show. And what was the first meeting with Sam, and what did you guys talk about, and how did you guys work together throughout the show?
You want to go, Adam, or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, we know someone that we know one of the execs that work at Gunpowder and Sky, and Gunpowder and Sky was kind of the point team on this. Sam Raimi and his producing partner Debbie Liebling were producers as well, and so he just mentioned, "Hey, we got this show coming out. You should bring in some pitch ideas." We brought in 3 different states: Texas, Oregon, Minnesota. But Minnesota, Great Cloud Island, our home state, was the most fully fleshed out. So secretly, we wanted this one because it was also really big. Like when you watch it, you realize like it's a really big scope to it. Like we're just going all over the place, and so we were excited about that opportunity. We pitched to a couple of different times, and the last time we pitched to Debbie, his producing partner, and you know, look, when it's tough. Like we've all been in a situation where you're pitching, and you get the blank face, and you get this face.
Yeah.
And you just kind of jot stuff down, and you just never know. We pitched to Debbie on the phone, and at the end of it, she laughed and she goes, "That's great, I love it." And few more words after that, you know, kind of hung up, and Adam and I were like, "That was probably the best pitch we've had." Again, this was over the phone, but we'd done it 2 or 3 times by that point. But it more than anything, when people see it, they'll know it's just fun. It's just a ride. Yeah. So after that, it's a period of wait, like, you know, from start to finish. It was about a year from the pitch to now. It was about a year. So our first communication with Sam was that we did a conference call where we did a table read, and he read. You know, the fun thing is he read a character, which I don't.
This is like a pinch me moment. This is like our pinch me moment. Like what's happening right now?
I don't know if it was done on purpose or not. I'm sure it was at some point. Like
I don't think it was.
I probably wasn't, but there was a character named Ashley in the script. And he read the character of Ashley. And at a certain point in the script, they keep calling him Ash. So he read that part, and we all read it. Apparently, that's the way he works, where he sits down and we all took different parts and we read it out loud and we ask questions, because there's no better way to really figure out what's working, what's not working, specifically dialogue. Like, you know, when dialogue's not working, when it comes out someone's mouth and they just keep tripping over the same, you know, syllables or what have you, you just go, okay, that needs to be fixed. Yeah. So we did that as a session. But then, you know,
I mean, he really got into it too.
He got into
it. Like, and Brian and I just look. I mean, he was on the phone. We were actually at the Gunpowder and Sky production office with Debbie was there, and the rest of the producers. Sam was on the phone because he was out of country at the time. But it was like Brian and I just looking at each other when Sam Raimi is reading the lines that you wrote. Like it was definitely a pinch me moment. But he got really into it. I can tell you this, you know. I learned so much in just that one, 2-hour writing session, reading session, whatever you want to call it. He asked some of the greatest kind of from script through production to final product notes, thoughts, or questions that we've ever gotten before. Wow. Just like somebody who knows from script through production to final product, what it's going to look like, has gone through every imaginable, moment in that process, and just knows what he's doing. So he just asked, I can't even tell you what the question was, but he asked a bunch of pointy questions about it, and Brian and I were just like, that's a good question. Like
story questions, just really good story questions. Like, who's this character? What is it? Yeah, just who is this character? What does this character know? So why is this character at this point? Can this character be over here? Just stuff like that. Very simple stuff, but obviously he's been doing it for a while.
Oh yeah.
So so after that, the next time we had it, so it was staggered because you went up in different. An episode would go up, they would film, and then an episode would come behind them. Mm-hmm. People would stay behind.
In Vancouver. We shot in Vancouver.
Okay.
We shot in Vancouver.
So he would stay behind and do post, and then, you'd be there for a certain amount of time, then you'd come back home. So we didn't overlap with our shooting because we were shot number 6 of the 9. We did number 6, but he came up for like a mini wrap. And we all went to this bar that everybody goes to. It's a hotel bar that everyone goes to when you're shooting in Vancouver called the Sutton. We'd never been, first time in Vancouver. And everyone's like, so Sam's coming tonight. And he came over and everyone, it was a gathering of just nerd horror genre filmmakers. And we all kind of circled him. And the coolest thing we can say about the guy is that he's been in the business since, when did Evil Dead come out? 81?
80, I think 81, 82, 83.
So...
81.
He's 40 years.
He was the biggest film geek of them all. Like,
really?
He just gets excited when he talks about it. He got excited for us, and he doesn't. Frankly, he doesn't. What does he care? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, his name is on it, but he was so excited for us. Like, we would bring him stills from and he would just geek out. And it's so. I think more than anything, that's just who he is. He's obviously he's just very passionate about genre film. You have to be to continue to make it 40 years down the road. So it just showed us like it's okay to be just fall in love with it, and it's okay. It's not. It is a business, and I'm sure he's an amazing businessman. But he was very much just in love with the genre, and he just was happy for us.
Yeah.
And we just all circled him and just took shots and just picked his brain. And more than anything, he was just one of the. I mean, there were females there, but he was one of the guys.
Yeah, one of the guys.
In the sense that he made himself very much like one of us, as we talked about not just our movies, but other people's movies, as we just had conversations about different people's films.
He's one of those. He's one of those few people that's like the legend that's still left. You know, from Romero. I mean, Carpenter and him and a few others. But you know, we've lost Craven and Romero and Toby Hooper and. So it's
Absolutely.
it's glorious to be able to work with them.
That's a great point because obviously Carpenter's still here, but it seems like he doesn't have his. I don't know if he has his interest.
He's making music now. He's done. Music.
But he was very influential. I mean, he was so influential on our stuff as well. I mean, he just spanned different genres, but it was also unabashedly a genre, but it was within different genres. It was action adventure, it was science fiction, it was horror, but. Yeah, he's someone I would definitely love to see turn something out new, but I don't know if that interest is there. But
I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't know. Hopefully.
I got to be on a reality show pilot with it was like a filmmaker competition, and I don't know if I mentioned this in one of the past episodes, but it was with Wes Craven. He was like the host of the show, and I was a filmmaker on the show, and it was probably about 6 to 8 months before he died, and I got to see, and so we made a film with him, you know, in and out, kind of giving us advice, and then he watched our 5-6 minute movie after the week or a few days that we shot it and edited and everything. And then he spent an hour talking about a 5-minute movie, so it's that same thing. Like a master knows exactly how to process everything and how to be able to pinpoint all the issues that are in it. And it's just like they train their minds to see every single frame, to see every single element, because that's what, we've all done. You guys are getting that practice too. Like the more you see your film in the editing, in post-production, in the audio booth, you're able to, like, you're training your minds, right? Like this is now it's your third movie technically, but you guys have done 2 features. Do you guys feel that you're gaining that knowledge to be able to, like training the mind?
This is by far the best filmmaking experience we've ever had in terms of like a team around us, but just. It was funny because when we were up there. It's a television series, but it was built like mini movies. So they had alternating crews, alternating DPs, alternating art directors, but one production designer, and they were juggling different things. But when we got up there, I think the thing we kept hearing from everybody is that we just had a very specific idea of what we wanted. And when we got there, we could kind of see people kind of looking, because you land and it's boom. We had 8 days of prep for a 5-day shoot.
Right to production office, like meeting until
you go. And of course, that's like, it's when you're doing something you love, you're like, give me more. Like,
do it.
we could do production meetings until 3 a.m. But the one thing we kept hearing was everybody's just kind of looking at each other like, wow, the guys know exactly what they want.
Yeah.
I think more than anything, it's because like we have a really good sense of like, no, this is the way it's going to be, and it doesn't mean we're right. It just means we know what we want. And I think that's probably the biggest jump from the last few films to this one, is just like having a very clear idea of what it is we want to get across. Again, it doesn't mean it's going to turn out the way you want. It doesn't mean it's right, whatever right means, but just a level of confidence. And I think everyone kind of fed off that confidence. We kept seeing the producers around that were there to kind of watch us and make sure that we knew, we're just kind of like, okay, yeah,
we do a take or whatever, and they'd be like a couple takes of something, and just we're like, okay, we can move on. And they're like, you guys sure you think you got that? We're like, yeah, we got it. We know exactly. In our mind, like,
exactly.
What little snippet of that we're gonna use in the edit? Like, we know exactly what we needed to get from that shot, and we got it.
You've been doing this a while together. Like I met Brian probably, it must have been 12, 14 years ago through our friend Tommy Bernard. And I DP'd a 5-minute short,
Yes.
and
that's right.
that you
Right.
did called
Yeah.
The Box.
Yeah.
The
And
box.
then years later, you guys are 20 like early 2000 2010s. You guys
Yeah.
are doing this
2010.
movie Delivery, and it's found footage, and I'm like, fuck, dude, yeah, that's cool, that's cool. And then I saw it twice. I think I saw it twice in the theaters because I did different film festivals, and the ending of that movie is fucking phenomenal. But then you take a big jump from like a found footage style to Intruders, and that Adam directed, and so you guys have been trading off. I have so many questions with you guys, but we'll have eventually have to move on. But
Yeah.
but it's a big jump. I'm sure that now you guys are continually taking these big leaps from movie to movie, going boom, boom. Like here's a Sam Raimi fucking produced one.
Well, this is
The
funny
full
thing.
production
Yeah.
design, everything you guys had probably, right? At least.
Yeah, this is by far the biggest thing we've done, even though it's only 24 minutes.
Yeah.
We landed. We had kind of an expectation. You got Sam Raimi's name on it. You expect some sort of professionalism, and you landed. And it was like it blew our mind either way. Like we were prepared for it, but it still blew our mind. Like, wow, you walk in and to see the things that the production design team, which I could sing their praises until next week. What the production design team was able to accomplish, because like Brian was saying earlier, it was literally like mini movies. So it's not like a normal TV show where you're like, oh, you can save that set and you can reuse that or reframe it this way. And everything was brand new. Like nothing was reused. They just everything was new. They moved mountains and made miracles happen. And what we were able to get on screen in our episode and all the other episodes, it's mind-boggling. It's pretty amazing. But you land and it was.
And a lot
yeah,
of
go ahead.
that's because when you're in Vancouver, a lot of that is television production. So television production, you can work on Supergirl for 6 seasons and you're basically recreating a lot of the same type stuff. So what we found is that a lot of the department heads up there, they were like, we were seeking this out because we knew, obviously, A, it had Sam Raimi's name on it, but B, every episode will be, and, at the end of the day, if you're props, if you're a production designer, if you're a DP, if you're costumes, you want to put your stamp on something. Like everyone, you're the master of your domain, and that is what you carry from project to project is look at what I put on this person. So what we found is that people were just clamoring to get on this because they realized, whereas if you were on a television show for 6 seasons, 3 seasons, 10 seasons, you're creating largely the same look and feel. And that's great because it's work, right? And if you love it, great. But here you got to really show off. So people were so enthusiastic, and what we kept hearing, particularly when we got to our episode, everyone would kind of be like, "We've kind of been looking forward to this episode because it really tested them." Not that our story was any better than anyone else's. It just was so much bigger and so much. The scope of it really tested people. It tested their production design because a lot of it was practical locations, and so they had to go into buildings and all right, okay, we have to really make this look and feel a particular way. Our DP, when you see it, he did some amazing. That's why we say don't go to the trailer because a lot of our stuff is in the trailer.
Okay.
So don't go see the trailer because he just did a great job, and he was someone we would use again in a heartbeat. Costume design people, she would come up to us. Our head costume designer was like, there's a character in the film, you'll see it when you know it. She has 2 pigtails. Her name is Pigtails, and so our costume designer would keep bugging us like, I want to be Pigtails. And so she was kind of inhabiting this character, and that level of passion shows in the work. It's one thing if you just punch a clock, you come in, you punch a clock, you leave, you're done. It's another thing if you come in and you're just like, I love this character, I want to bring some of me to it.
And that's the key thing, to inspire the people with the script, with your passion, to inspire everyone. That's what makes a great director, right? Is that that's the key. That's the key.
Yeah.
It is the key. And I can only say that I think they had that before we got there, not diminishing us as directors.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were, the one thing they loved is we were very collaborative because we're like, look, we've given you the words. Show us what you got.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're going to go with it, but show us what you got.
We're going to we'll take the best idea. You know what I mean? We're going to take the best idea that makes sense for the movie because that makes the best movie. And people were brought us ideas all the time. I mean, they had created their own mythologies in regards to the costumes specifically. She came in with this whole mythology of something, and some of that stuff we actually adopted. We took little pieces of it and we were like, oh yeah, this actually is really cool. We hadn't thought about that, and added a little piece to it. And you just see that stuff, you feel that stuff on the screen. When everybody cares that much about it, like Brian was saying, you know, just punch a clock.
You need people to give a shit as much as you or more, because it's so hard. It's such grueling work. And it's very easy to just come in and do what's needed of you and nothing more, and then just move on. But
even if you're making good money, you could be really bored and just hate. You could be making good money, decent art, but not really having the passion for it. And so you need something, you know, like especially if it's a TV show that's like a monotonous thing, like a talk show or a game show, which I've worked on those, and I could see the people getting bored with their lives, and they're making fucking great money. They're buying houses and shit. They could buy apartment buildings, whatever. And it's like, it's just that, and these kind of projects is what really, really inspires people to give their all. You want a challenge.
You want to challenge, and I think it's also a reminder of why you got into the business, because it's only for it'll be for a split second, because Quibi will come and this show will come and will be a couple of seasons, and 10 years down the road they still got to feed their family, but they can look back and go, I really was proud of this particular.
I made that cool thing.
Yeah. I mean, this whole show, we kept saying when we were there, was almost like a film festival. I know we're talking about festivals today, whatever. It's like
we're about to.
I'm a little segue here, but it was like we called it a film festival for people that were making films, because we kind of overlapped with some of the other filmmakers who have now become our friends. Ryan Spindell, Yoko Akamura, you know, Alejandro, we already talked about. And we hung out. We got to hang out. Like, we came at different stages of making our movies. So, you know, somebody was there. They gave us advice before they left, and we were giving advice to other people as it was happening. And everybody was so excited, and has been. And we've kept these relationships going, are so excited for each other to, like, make that the best thing you could possibly make it, and offering little bits of advice and here and there. And it was literally like a film festival for people making movies. And when we left, you know, a lot of the producers were asking us, if we go into second season and what have you, what little takeaways would you tell us worked and what didn't, kind of a thing. And the biggest thing we said is keep it the same way, where you can have all the filmmakers in the same place. We all kind of lived in the same building, and have a lot of the filmmakers overlap in time, prep and production and post, and allow them to collaborate in that way, and just hang out and have some beers and talk about the process, because you pull little tidbits of like advice and thoughts, and be prepared, or this crew member, make sure you with this person, because I get him on your side. You want to get him on your side, and
we'll show man.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it works.
I can't wait to see Great Cloud Island, the 50 States of Fright. I keep wanting to say stages of fright. 50 States of Fright. Let's bring in Heidi and Miguel for our next state of our podcast today. So let's pause for a second, and we'll bring them in.
It is time to welcome our next guests. First off, we have film journalist, programmers who specializes in genre films. She's written for Bloody Disgusting, Fangoria, Famous Monsters, and programmed the Nightfall section of the LA Film Festival. She also founded the short genre film festival, Etheria Film Night, and it's for women directors. She is currently the VP of short form and episodic content for the Horror Collective, and her favorite horror movie is Frankenstein's Army. Welcome, Heidi Honeycutt. Woo!
Yay!
Yeah. You can boo or cheer, whatever you want to do.
Yay!
We also have, who I have dubbed the King of Horror in San Diego, the founder and executive director of the Horrible Imaginings Film Festival. I've had a few beers. I don't give a shit. He is also a film curator and a programmer for the San Diego Latino Film Festival, the Film Geek San Diego, Digital Film Cinema, Digital Gym Cinema, and the Museum of Photographic Arts. His favorite horror movie is Godzilla. Welcome, Miguel Rodriguez.
Hi, thanks.
All right.
Resounding applause. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have Miguel and Heidi on the film festival side. We have Adam and Brian on the filmmaker side. We're going to have a healthy conversation on the ins and outs of bettering the world through each other's perspectives. So we're going to start with Adam and Brian and about your film festival experiences as filmmakers. Let's say you've just finished your film. Now what do you do with it? You have a tight submission budget. How do you choose which festivals to submit to?
It's two different. I mean, our first two films were very different experiences. Our first film was self-funded, very small, grassroots. So for us, it was a matter of getting it anywhere that we can get it seen. So it was a matter of where's the timeline, and I think that's interesting because I do know a lot of filmmakers that plan their production schedule around what was going to be, what the deadlines were going to be at the time.
Mhm.
We didn't have that. We didn't have that ability. We just made the film when we could make it, and of course, our post production, we basically funded it as we could. So we would be finished when we were finished. And
Yep.
so we actually ended up coming around the period where LA Film Fest was the time when we were finished with our film. Actually could submit it. Because obviously you can submit works in progress, but I think we've all seen works in progress films, and it's you do what you can in terms of just understanding, like, okay, well, this visual effect isn't finished or this voiceover isn't finished, but it's really an unfinished film is a tough watch at times. So for our first film, LA Film Fest, we submitted it, and it was as close to finished as we could possibly get it.
Mhm.
And we were fortunate enough to get in. And so for us, that was a huge win because our first film was a $45,000 film.
Yeah.
And, even when we submitted it, it wasn't 100% done, but it was ready enough to the point where we could get it seen. Our second film was a little bit larger. It was a film that had more producers and more recognizable stars. The trick we had with that one was that some of our producers initially they weren't as welcome to the idea of film festivals because I think they saw it as something that might go straight to buyers or to studios.
Yeah.
And so it was very late in the game where they finally allowed us, because we had such a great experience in our first film with film festivals. I mean, film festivals for us, LA Film Fest, New Orleans Film Fest, Sigis. We played at about 15 or 16 festivals across the world. And so we had such a great experience. We kept telling them that it was an incredible way to get a small film out to people.
Yes.
But I think initially their thought was, okay, well, this might be something that is a bit larger than that. And it wasn't until late in the game when they said, okay, start submitting. By that time, we had already passed a lot of deadlines. And so I believe we submitted to, I want to say Tribeca, where the final cut from what we told, you never know with these things, didn't get in. But then we came back to LA Film Festival because by that point we passed a lot of other film festivals. Once you hit May, there's really nothing until June, which was LA Film Festival at that point. And so at that point they were like, oh, alumni. We were 2 years removed from our first film, and they were excited to have us. We were excited to go back. And it was great to go back and premiere something a little bit larger. And then we went to a number of other film festivals.
And that's the tricky thing with, like, okay, it's your first film, you've self-funded it, but then maybe your second film or your third film, you might have some producers that have a plan for it, and it's a sales plan, or the financiers have a sales plan, and there's and spending the money to travel the actors and the director and putting them up in hotels around the world or whatever is not in the budget. And so that's kind of something they're like, you know what, we already have a distribution plan for this, so let's not take it to a film festival. But it's always nice when as a director you can actually, it may not go to a theaters, so you can actually sit in a theater and see your work and have the teams just sit there and soak in the glory of what you guys did with an audience.
And I think for our second film, because a lot of the producers we had, which were, by the way, phenomenal producers, but they worked on films far larger than the budget of our film. So I think a lot of they were viewing it as, okay, well, our goal is to screen it for buyers in whatever setting that might be, and then try to get some sort of, at that point, the Blumhouse model was very big in the sense of an acquisition that would then go to X number of thousands of theaters. Yeah. And so, but our thought was, well, we really believe in the film. Not that they didn't, but let's get it out to a Sundance. Let's get it out to a Tribeca. Let's get it out to a Berlin, whatever. And that there was resistance to that initially. That didn't come until later, but by that time we had already passed Sundance.
They might already have a salesperson that or a distribution that doesn't want it seen because they don't want it.
And there's a lot of and for we always joke our second film had 8 cast members and twice as many producers. So there's a lot of different point of views and thought processes that go behind it. It's not a matter of right or wrong. It's just a matter of how do we protect our investment? How do we get it to the most people as possible? How do we make sure that the most people get to see it down the road? Even if down the road is not as many people as initially. It's like, let's get it to a distributor that's going to get it to the most people.
Yeah.
And so, it's a different
Producers
thing.
are about paying people who are going to pay to see the movie, as opposed to, the small ticket price for a film festival here or there. As a filmmaker, you want an audience to see it. You don't at least in our experience. I don't care if they're buying a ticket or they were given a ticket or they want a ticket or what have it is. I want them sitting in a seat watching it on a big screen the way it was meant to be seen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the opposing views that you have as the filmmaker and the producer, if you're not one and the same.
The art versus commerce.
The art versus commerce.
It's always,
and our first, to rewind a bit to our first film, Adam and I split that film 50-50. We're the owners of that film, he and I, outright. And so a lot of times being the outright owners of a small film of that size doesn't amount to much. But at least in our instance, what it amounted to was control. Yeah. Because at that point we got to, once we eventually did premiere at LA Film Fest and we sold out of that film festival, we were not only given control of the festival it premiere at, but also control of what would happen to it beyond that. So we always consider that an amazing film education, because a lot of times as a director for hire, you lose your power. You lose your power. You make your film and it's like, congratulations, we'll let you know where it sells and then we'll let you know when it's coming out. Yeah. But for us, we were involved in all of the sales calls with our XYZ sold our film. So they had to call us when they were fielding offers and what those offers entailed, what that would mean in terms of screens, or in our case, VOD and a couple of screens. And then ultimately artwork, once we found our distributors. That was an amazing education for us, because I think a lot of filmmakers want that level of inclusivity and input, but they're just not given it because frankly, their opinion isn't as relevant. Yeah. So, just rewinding to our first film, we were very fortunate that we were able to premiere at a festival that was so filmmaker friendly. And then B, we were able to be involved in those conversations when it sold, and then once it was marketed. And then again, as we, at the end of the day, we still own that film 50-50. So whatever life it has moving forward, we're always going to be involved in that.
Yeah. So Heidi and Miguel, like, what makes a film programmable for you guys? Let's start with Heidi with Etheria, and you program other festivals. What is it about a film that really makes you get your passion behind it?
Sure, and I think this might be where some of that financier, where their disdain for film festivals might come from, because my first thought is always, what does the audience want to see? So the people that are actually sitting in the seats, what are they going to like? What are they not going to like? And usually that gels with my personal preferences, because I'm, started a festival that, so that I could show stuff I liked. And then the people that would go, like, oh, they like what I like, okay, great, because that's what we're doing here. With something like LA Film Festival, so when I was there, I wasn't there when your film was there, but I was in charge of the Nightfall section, which I'm assuming your film probably played in. And so for that was a little different in that there were definitely films I wanted to show, but there was because it's a larger film festival, there's a bigger committee. There were dozens of programmers for all the different sections, and it was a lot harder to get through films that I thought that were very right for the audience, and there was a lot of pressure to I can say this because I can't get fired because the festival's done. There was a lot of pressure to show certain films from certain filmmakers, or films that had certain people in them, over films that I would just pick because I thought they were really good. That being said, I'm very proud of the films that we did show, and I think that we ended up with really good stuff. Like, I'd never say that I wasn't, down with what we showed, but I think it depends. Again, it's almost a strange parallel, that the more control I have over my festival and my programming, versus the larger the festival, the less control the programmer seems to actually have over what's happening and what's under their name as a programmer. Like, if it's got shown, but why? And you might know the reason why, and it might not be, the reason people think. So I don't know if that answered the question at all. But
It's very similar to what people would consider the studio system with independent filmmaking as opposed to studio filmmaking. When you have a studio film, there's more money involved, there's more voices, there's more cooks in the kitchen, and there's there's a lot of times people, fans of films and what have you, go, oh, why did the filmmaker choose to do this? Well, the filmmaker most likely didn't have any opinion on that. It was chosen for them specifically out of their hands. Nothing they can do about it, but their name's on it, so they get, It's I would imagine it's very similar in that way.
So Miguel, what's your main criteria when you're booking a film? Like, what do you look for? Like, what is it?
So, I mean, this is an awesome question because it's also really hard to answer. Yeah. Everything goes back to the objective, no matter what we're talking about. Of course, we could talk about what Adam and Brian were talking about with, ultimately what's their objective when they want to go to a film festival. If the film gets sold and goes straight to VOD, they are missing out on the experience of an entire audience gasping at a scene they put together in unison. If they don't get that, then, ultimately, like, what's kind of the point of what the story is that they're trying to tell? That's one of the things that a film festival can offer, because if they were to try to four-wall that themselves, they're looking at thousands of dollars for a single screening, as opposed to whatever the strategy is for submission fees. So all of that is to go to, like, what's the goal? What's the objective? So for my film festival that I founded, Horrible Imaginings, my goal was kind of multifaceted. So I have had film festival experience for a long time in a variety of positions, from programming to volunteering to making sure data entry, collecting reels of 35 millimeter film and making sure it's logged and kept track of. So I have a lot of experience in a lot of different festivals, most of them kind of these bigger tier festivals that don't really have a clear focus. Like, for example, Maryland Film Festival. Like, what kind of movie does Maryland Film Festival show, or LA Film Festival for that matter? It's a little nebulous, right? I mean, a lot of times it's like, ooh, what are the new kind of like hot indies that are coming out? What is a big one that we can show to drive traffic? Who can we get on the red carpet? And so it's kind of a really different experience than, say, a genre film festival, like what I want to do with Horrible Imaginings. When I started it, it was because there wasn't a horror film festival in San Diego, which is where we were at the time. This will be our 11th year. And there were a lot of things I was putting into the creation of the film festival. One is, if you talk to normal people, civilians, if you will, who don't go to film festivals, it is really interesting how many of people in that segment of the population don't realize that a film festival is even something that they can go to. There's this kind of mystique that it is an industry-only event, that it's kind of ostracizing or elitist. So I wanted to combat that and kind of like blend the filmmaker segment with the audience segment a little bit and break down that wall to some degree, not completely, but to some degree, so that the conversation is open more. I wanted an audience who really felt in a sincere way that they were part of the ecosystem, because they are. If you make a film and it has no audience, or you have no way to access the audience and connect with them, then I don't see any worth in your storytelling. That's really my view on things. It's a two-way street. The filmmaker is half of the conversation. The audience is the other half. So that being said, I am looking for films that generate that conversation. My definition of what constitutes horror for my own purposes is very, very broad. So even to like make the conversations easier, I don't even call us really a horror film festival anymore. I say we showcase films that express fear or anxiety. So that starts to outreach more things, because it's really more of what I'm looking for. I honestly, if I see like Sleepaway Camp or Anthropophagus or The Witch or Apocalypse Now, all of those films are kind of appealing to like this primal darkness in me that are, that are healing in some way, despite that. It's going through the grinder, but coming out the other end kind of healed in some capacity. I think a lot of us can agree with that. And it's that I'm really trying to get. And when you can get that experience with a group of people and then have the opportunity to kind of like talk about it afterward, there's nothing better. And I started film festivals because I wanted to share movies. So that's literally it, what excites me. And so when I'm watching movies, and I'm sure that all of you can attest to this, but certainly Heidi, last year we got like, I think 1,400 submissions.
Wow.
I have a team of 11, so thank God. But if you're like, okay, I'm scheduling this day, I'm going to watch like 25 films or whatever.
Yeah.
It can be really exhausting.
Yeah.
And you have to like really take breaks, or else you're not giving those films proper attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll put something in and you're like, okay, one more. And you'll feel like you're at the end. You're like, if I do anything else, it's not going to be fair to the filmmaker. But then your eyes will shoot open and pop out of your head. You're like, holy fuck, I can't wait to see what people think about this. That goes to the top of the list. So like there are things that will excite you on a visceral and real. I know this isn't helpful for filmmakers probably, because it's not really specific, but in a way that is sincere, that that's really what makes things pickable. And to close this, because I know I've been talking a long time, I will say that when I talk to my programmers, I have programmers all over the continent. Most of them are filmmakers themselves, or actors, or critics. Our first thing that we do is I ask them, give me the films that stood out. They're not allowed to go through their list. They're not allowed to like scroll through Film Freeway.
What's off the top of their head? Then?
What's off the top of their heads?
Okay.
What's stuck? Because they saw 100 things.
Yeah.
But if something's stuck, there's got to be a reason why. So that's just a conversation starter. I'm not going to say that that's what's going to be, but it's a conversation starter.
That reminds me. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. It's all you.
I was going to say, it reminds me of, so I know that you guys have pitched, right? You've gone into the office and pitched the thing and have it, and it's horrible. It's the most horrible experience ever. I don't know if you've ever done that, Miguel. But one day, I was pitching a thing, because I've tried to do that too. And the person, said, no, I'm sorry, we're not interested. And I was like, well, what are you interested in? What do you want? And they said, I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But it's exactly what I would say if somebody asked me, like, well, what special about, I don't know. Sometimes something's just really fucking good, and it's hard to exactly explain why. Usually it's a perfect storm of talent from all the important directions. I mean, including your cinematographer and the person in charge of the lighting and the actor and some directors are great with action, but they're terrible with actors, and sometimes they're great with all of it, and sometimes it just goes bad and you're like, oh my god, it's perfect storm. I know it, I saw it, and I knew it. And so I feel bad talking shit about that executive for so many years after I pitched, but I think that I get what they were saying now.
So Brian and Adam, like, what when it comes to a festival experience, maybe we'll hear from each of you on a good and a bad. Brian, you give the good. Adam, you give the bad on like what has been some of the what do film festivals do to really nurture and harness like a beautiful relationship with the filmmakers? Brian, you're going to do this, and then Adam, we're going to go with you. With what is it about a film festival that just doesn't click and doesn't work at all? So Brian, go for it.
Well, I'll just say I have the easier side of this because
Yeah, I know. What the?
we've had very good experiences with film festivals, fortunately. I think the film festivals that stuck out to us, obviously LA Film Fest was where both of our films premiered.
Yeah.
So particularly LA Film Festival, our first film, Delivery, I mean, they have a filmmakers retreat, which I guess is very unique to them. And for ours, we went to Skywalker Ranch.
Oh.
And I mean, that's all you need. But in addition to that, the filmmakers, the filmmakers there that particular year were Ryan Coogler, who's going to do a little film called Black Panther.
Yeah.
Daniel Destin Creighton, who, if you've seen Short Term 12, is an amazing film.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi now.
From San Diego.
From San Diego, a brilliant guy, a guy I probably got to know the best of all the people I've met there at that festival. Brilliant, sweet man. Ava DuVernay was there with a documentary on Serena Williams. So you get to meet people like that. And I think that film festival in particular was very big about getting people together, and it's very director-centric and just kind of like letting you sit down and listen to, since we're talking horror, because we're all horror filmmakers, at a kind of a mixer, gatherer. I ended up speaking with a guy who had a film there that starred Danny Houston. I can't remember the name of the film. But we were there talking for maybe 30 minutes, and someone just talking. And he's obviously, he was a few years older than me, and he's been around a bit more. And so someone came up to us and was like, do you know who this guy is? I'm like, I really don't. He directed Candyman. And so
Bernard Rose.
Candyman for me is one of my favorite horror films of all time. I had no clue. And so then I gushed to him for 10 minutes about what Candyman was and what it meant to me and why it's such a brilliant film. And I watched it recently after the trailer release. So that's what film festivals, I think, do best. Is they bring people together from different, and not always this, but sometimes from different points in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to just pick each other's brains, and you're just kind of amongst creativity. And that was our first film festival, but also the festival in which I just sought out programmers, because you're just so curious, and you're like, so how does it work? And I think the thing I got most from people was what you said, Heidi. It's like that famous Supreme Court ruling where they're just like, I don't know what pornography is, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what good is, because good is so subjective.
Yeah.
But I know when something sticks with me. And so this will lead to a larger question, which I would love to get to you guys to ask of you guys later, which is it a film that sticks with you, or is it a film that you find is well made? Because there's two different things, right?
You're very right.
And so I know that's a separate question, but I would love to get that question, because the reason I asked that is because our first film has a very strong ending. And
I love the ending.
So when it was a matter of getting to know the programmers, you're shaking hands, you're meeting all these people at the end of the day, and after 2 days of spending with these different programmers, finally, we went up to San Francisco, flew to San Francisco, came back. I was on the bus back at LAX, and finally, two of the programmers, we were the last three people from a large group of people, and they kind of looked around and were like, nobody was around. They were like, holy cow, the ending of your movie. They had been holding it for 2 days, but they couldn't say it in front of everybody else.
Yeah. It's so rough.
And so it's a matter of like, the question you're always asking yourself is, are they looking for moments? Are they looking for things that get people talking? Are they looking for recognizable actors?
Yeah.
That's the thing I would love to ask you guys. But to answer your question, Christian, it was the ability to kind of pick the brain of all these different filmmakers that have gone on to do amazing things, or that will still go on to do amazing things.
Yeah, and it's the community, community, and having a great, awesome talent around.
Absolutely, and being in awe of everyone else's work, and they're in awe of your work as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been to festivals where, a big, and I'm moving on to Adam right now. So a big issue that everyone can have is that you go to a film festival, and sometimes you might travel to a film festival, and there's no one there. That's the responsibility of a film festival, is to get people in the seats, regardless of whether or not the film is good. So, and you have people traveling from around the world and from another state, and they're just spending their last few dimes. And like, I've done that. Like, I've gone to Florida, I've gone to, Massachusetts and gone to film festivals where I was like, holy fuck, I've stood outside from the first film festival I ever went to. I stood outside the film festival in Palm Beach, fucking Florida, and I knew no one was going to be in this film. It was the premiere of my movie, and this was in the mid 2000s. And I was like, I will pay you to come in and watch my movie. I will buy your fucking ticket right now. I just need an audience because I came all the way from LA, and because it was their job to bring the people, and they scheduled us at 11 fucking a.m. on a Friday or something like that. It's like, so how do you, so Adam, come on, it's your turn. I know you guys have had massive success in your entire lives. Yeah, you guys are millionaires. You don't need to worry about film festivals anymore.
Okay, signing off, Christian. You've had too many.
Yeah, you've never played a bad film. No, you had to have had some. You don't have to say names, but like, what is it about a film festival that really doesn't work for you as a filmmaker? Attending it and for the experience of it.
For me personally, is exactly what you guys have been talking about, which is the best parts of film festivals are bringing people together for conversations, fostering that conversation amongst filmmakers who have made their first film or their fifth film or what have you. For me, the worst experiences I've had is when it gets like competitive. It's like the competitive nature. Everybody wants, like, I've seen it a lot. More recently, within the last couple of years, of like, come to our festival, we'll give you a really sweet trophy. Look at how cool our trophy looks like. And I think that just misses the point of the whole thing at all.
I hate that.
When things get, it's cool, put something on your shelf. But if it's from some film festival, doesn't mean anything, and it was around for 6 months, you know what I mean? It feels good when you're standing there, like, accepting it, and then next week it means nothing. So festivals, when it becomes competitive, like, I had a couple experiences. Luckily, I mean, it is. I agree, Christian. It's up to the festival to kind of draw people to your screenings, but it's also up to the filmmakers. You know what I mean? Like, they if it's a larger festival and they have,
of course,
whatever, they're showing 75 films. They can only split their time up amongst, and try to get people to come to this one, and everybody's not going to get the prime spot for the thing, because they got, the best experience we ever had was when our first film, Delivery, again, at LA Film Festival, played right before The Conjuring. Literally, it was like a sneak peek of The Conjuring. It played right before The Conjuring. Now, 99.9% of the people in our screening were there to see The Conjuring, which was happening 2.5 hours later. But it was the best audience we ever had, because people were just like, they sat down going, okay, I got to sit through this thing to see The Conjuring. And they actually enjoyed the movie. They're surprising. But it's if they kind of, like, they're not really bringing filmmakers together, and they're kind of pitting them against each other. Yeah. And it's like, oh, who's going to win? Or they're giving out, just random awards. Like, I understand you give out your awards for the best, so people know.
Awards are fun still,
right?
No matter what,
are fun. Yeah, are fun.
I hate them more than I hate cancer.
I get
that's
it,
a different situation.
Well, no, I'd love to hear more on that. I mean, do you feel the obligation to create awards just for the sake of attracting?
So I have this fight with my team every year. We didn't have awards the first couple of years, and I feel like we're catering to an expectation. But I view myself as an art curator first and foremost, and I view the awards as just pissing over everything. And so I take myself out of the process. I don't judge awards. I don't present awards. It's the only time in the festival I'm like, fuck this, I'm off the stage. I hate this. And I'm very open about that.
See, I've won an award at your film festival before, so I was happy to accept it, and I still have it up on the wall.
I'm not saying
there because it's very
and
pretty.
To be honest, when people are happy and when a film I really like, takes something home, I know that there is a good feeling with that.
Yeah.
But it's still it is the competitive aspects that I really just despise. And it's second to having to say no to a film I love, which happens far more frequently.
Yeah.
It is the thing I hate most about doing a film festival.
The
thing I hate most is writing the rejection letter for good stuff.
Oh yeah.
The one thing, because I know I love to hear your Heidi. I was just going to say the one thing I will say about the thing when we sought out filmmakers and programmers from our first couple of film festivals.
While you're at the film festival, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
While we were at our film festival.
Yeah.
And in one particular one, we went to the New Orleans Film Festival, and we had met up with someone we had become friends with at the LA Film Fest. And we spent the weekend with her, and she became the director there. But we just had a blast with her. The one thing we kept asking is like, so how does the process, and I think the one thing you have to remember, if you're someone who's never gotten into a film festival, but you've been submitting for a long time, film programmers are film fans. They want to like everything. They want to like your film. They likely have liked your film. It's just a matter of like, do we have 10 films that deal with PTSD or 10 that deal with abortion or
huge? Yes.
That's the thing that we would just constantly run up to the people that were like, oh, so-and-so loves your film. And so we would run up to them and be like, bow down and just like, you guys made the film. We just chose it. Calm down. But for someone that's always on the outside looking in, you're always looking at it like, how did this happen? You're trying to figure out how to game the system. And there really is no way to game the system. It's about making something that's personal to you, something that you enjoy. And hopefully other people see that when they watch it.
Yeah.
But fortunately, sometimes I brought up, Short Term 12, a brilliant film that did not get accepted into Sundance, but went to South by Southwest and swept all the awards. Maybe there were other films that played at Sundance that had similar topics, and it was just a matter of preference. And so I think I'll let you guys speak, but that was the one thing I picked up from just picking the brains and becoming friends with programmers, is realizing they want to love your film. And it's because not because they don't love it.
Think of it like this: like you're casting your film. You've got 5 roles, and let's say 10 people come in and audition, and they're all brilliant.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna suddenly have 10 characters in your film, or are you gonna reject 5 people? That's the same. It's the same exact dilemma. For people like us, running a film festival and curating the lineup and having the audience and making it all work and come together, that's our film. That's like we put the same time and creativity and energy and passion into that an artist does into making their artwork. It's just a very different way that we're expressing our attempt at creativity. So it means a lot to us. It's really important to us, and the way the filmmakers feel and the way that the films come off, and you want everything to come together perfectly, just like you would in the making of a film. And sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. But definitely, like let's say for Etheria, my short showcase for women directors, we literally limit it to a feature film runtime. That's the entire runtime of the shorts that we show. So, and this year we're going it's about, let's say we go up to 2 hours. However many films we can fit into that 2 hours, that's how many films we're showing.
Yeah.
And if we've got a couple 20-minute films that are brilliant, we're gonna show them. That leaves less room for other stuff.
Yeah,
so inevitably, we always reject films that we really, really, really like. And it is sometimes, like you were saying, like we have 2 vampire films. Can we show a third? If it comes right down to it, which vampire film do we like this one just a tiny better, or we like that actor better, or we, it can be that small. And then Miguel is right. When you write these rejections, most people are very gracious and they're like, hey, thanks for checking out my film. I appreciate it. But every once in a while, you get a person who's very, very hurt. And I totally get that, because I've submitted like all kinds of screenplays to shit and never gets in. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
But I'm on the other end of it too. So I know. And I feel bad because I feel like they think I think their film is bad, or that this is somehow means something. And I really want those people to know that no, my judgment just means that I liked it or that my judges liked it and it worked for our specific audience.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean it's a good film or a bad film. Well, it means it's a good film if it's in, that's for sure. But it doesn't mean it's a bad film if it doesn't get in. And I'm not sure that really comes off as sincere. I think people think that.
No, it definitely
I
doesn't.
just say that. They're like, well, if it was so good, why didn't you pick it? And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
well, because I already had an alien film and I needed a foreign film because everything. I needed a film that didn't have
Diverse.
a fucking white person in it because you know what I mean. Like sometimes you need to, and if you have all these good films and you can mix and match them and stick them in however you want, you're gonna make choices like that.
And what are some of the biggest issues you guys have had with like a bitter filmmaker that didn't get into your festival? Like everyone has those bitter feelings. So like, what kind of venom have you seen, Miguel?
All right, so I want to address some things that we have been talking about, but I will.
Yeah.
The worst thing that we had from a bitter filmmaker is they sent an obvious mole to the festival who they were like walking around recording with their phone and stuff like that and trying to like accost the programmers and ask them stuff. Ultimately, it's just kind of humorous because the worst they got was annoying. Like that could have been a lot worse. But still, I mean, because it was a physical presence, it was worse than just a vitriolic email. The truth is, the professional filmmakers who have the experience to handle a rejection outweigh the shitheads to such a degree.
Absolutely.
Like, the problem is, like, the mean emails, just because of human negativity bias, just are louder and they hurt. It hurts to read them. We did have one, I'm not going to name names. I will say that some of the content of this letter was posted by another far larger film festival as a like what not to do if you're a filmmaker. Again, the person wasn't called out. It was just chunks of the letter of the email.
Yeah.
And it made me realize, it's like, holy crap, they just form letter hated like all of the festivals that rejected them. But I mean, it was stuff like, your programmer's really fucked up this time, and all this stuff. I mean,
Sorry.
Just like, oops, I guess. Oh, and then of course, like starting to list all the awards they won.
And so having humility is a main key of like continuing a relationship with your festivals. You might get rejected, but you can at least start a conversation with them, with the programmers, with the directors. At least continue a conversation. Say, hey, you know what? You guys didn't take this time, but I'm gonna try harder next time, or maybe I might luck out next time.
I know that we have shown stuff from people who we have rejected in the past. I'm sure Heidi has as well.
Absolutely.
That comes across. You know, the one thing that I think Brian brought up was the aspect of the alumnus or the alumni filmmakers. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like family.
It's not end all be all, but it is a thing, and it should be a thing. To some degree, the festival is there to foster growth. So it should be a thing. You know, I think this is what Fantasia does so well. You know, they've fostered so many filmmakers because they genuinely have that family feeling down pat.
You're proud of them when you see they made another one, and this one's really great too.
Yeah.
God, we're proud of these people. Yeah,
it is a community of support. I should point out here, for both me and Heidi, we both have programmed for much bigger film festivals. But in terms of like Etheria and Horrible Imaginings, there's a time limitation to our festivals.
Yeah.
I mean, Heidi brought up, you know, hers is a single night. Mine is essentially 2.5 days. So that definitely comes into play.
That's one of my questions for you guys is like, just discuss the time limitations of like, okay, should I make a 5-minute or a 10-minute or a 12-minute or a 15-minute or a fucking 34-minute film? Like,
don't make it 34 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not that it can't be good.
It can be
I'm
fantastic.
sure that, I've seen 34-minute films that are fantastic. It's just when you're
Like a feature.
programming, it's really hard to fit everything in together, like the little Tetris blocks that you need them to be.
Yep.
I think ideally for a short, you want to be under 20 minutes. If you have anything over 20 minutes, it's got to be your credits. Because it's really hard to fit that in, because more than that, and you're like, it's coming at the expense of other time that other filmmakers would also be sharing. And that's a consideration. I also think most filmmakers, with shorts, it's harder to get distribution. Maybe not now, that's changing, I think, but traditionally it's harder to get distribution with a short, so I don't think that's been too much of a problem. But if you have a 15-minute feature, let's say, that's a very awkward length, because you're probably hoping for distribution and you're not going to get distribution with that. And the filmmaker or the film programmer is going to not know where to program that.
We have a 50-minute submission this year.
Yeah, I would say be safe. Stay under 20 if it's a short. I think you can go pretty short.
Under 10, if you 10 is even better. Like
under 10 is fantastic.
You double your chances.
Yeah,
under
if it's
10
between like 6 and 10 minutes, it's like
exactly
perfect. Like,
but
it can be 1 minute if it works, and it can be 20 if it works. But and then I think that's really lengthwise. That's really all I.
Yeah, Miguel.
If I'm going to be really honest, brutally honest, if I see that running time and it's 24 minutes, I do I sigh. I'm like, oh fuck.
I programmed at least 3 or 4 film festivals, and I've slogged through hundreds of submissions. And yeah, I understand that. Like, you see a longer running time, you're like, and then the first 30 seconds is just so fucking like atrocious to sit through. It's like, oh man. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I won't go that far, but I mean, it happens. But
it happens. Yeah, you have to be diplomatic.
Yeah, I will say, okay, this is my biggest thing about longer form short films. Some of my favorites have been longer form, but they are diamonds in the rough. They are very rare. They have to be exemplary if they're going to be 20 minutes or more, like fucking exemplary.
Yeah.
And almost every time a film can be made better by trimming the fat.
Yes.
100%.
It's really hard to see if you're close to the project, but when you see as many films by as many different people as we do, you start to notice patterns, and that's why I think it's important for filmmakers to go to, or at least watch other people's films as much as possible, including.
Can I give an insane example?
Yeah.
This is my favorite example to give. All right, I'm actually gonna name this one. There's this British thriller called Bunny that very few people talk about, even though I adore it.
I think I know this film.
Yeah, Adam Ani directed it.
Okay,
and so he submitted a 30-minute version and a 15-minute version. And the 15-minute version all right, so Brian earlier asked about quality of technical aspects. Everything about this was beautifully rendered. The acting's wonderful, the cinematography is wonderful, the music was probably the best part of it. But the 15-minute version was a really well-made, very conventional thriller. The 30-minute version blew my fucking mind. And we took the 30-minute version, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I want to tell you, never submit the 15-minute version, only submit the 30-minute version, but I know that will. But I will say this, that will never happen again. I'm sure this is like a once in a lifetime. I've never had that happen again.
So I got to follow up on that. So when they submitted 2 different versions, did you receive both of them? Did you watch them both back to back?
I did.
Okay.
I did, because I was like, what the shit is this? No, it never happened. And I couldn't help myself. I was like, and I think I started with the 5th. I can't remember which one I started with. This is a few years back. But the thing about the longer version is it went some places that were far braver and more intense. And the 15-minute version cut out all of the best parts and left it as kind of like a bad date scenario. Yeah, it was much more conventional. Like So so that kind of killed it, and it really comes down to, all right, if we're going to go back to the first part of this conversation about that ethereal, to use the Etheria term, or nebulous description of what makes a good film, this is still kind of nebulous, but I think it's a little more understandable. It's sincerity. It's like, can I tell that this filmmaker had a purpose in making this film? They needed to tell this story. It wasn't like, I want to make this because you can tell when someone is making their like grindhouse, you know, Planet Terror ripoff because they kind of want to follow on the footsteps of that. It's like, I'm doing my grindhouse 70s throwback movie.
I've seen a million of them.
There's so many, and it's like, there's no sincerity there.
No.
I mean, I'm sure they sincerely love like shitty movies, like stuff like this, like I do, but you can tell that it's not like my heart needs to tell this story.
It's interesting you say that, because, not to cut you off, but I mean, our first film, Delivery, is basically a found footage movie. And by the time our movie came out or was submitted to LA Film Fest, that's passe. It was like, it was like people were like, oh, everybody was like, oh, I can do a cheap movie, I'm gonna make a found footage movie. But the programmers kept telling us, the people who accepted our film kept telling us exactly that. They were just like, I couldn't see this movie any other way, and that we were just like, we wouldn't have told this movie if we had to tell it a traditional way. Like,
Delivery stood out.
Like, the only way we would tell this story is through the format we tell you. It's not straight found footage. It's kind of like mockumentary.
Starts off as a TLC show.
Yeah, and turns into
like a pregnancy show. Yeah,
and then it turns into Rosemary's Baby essentially, and ends up kind of more like a found footage movie. But the format was, when we came up with the concept, the format was as much a part of it as the story.
Yeah.
And just kind of spitballing off of what you had said, we got that from a lot of the programmers. They were just like, it felt very much like, oh, like you needed to tell this story this way, or else it would have just been the same thing.
I think Heidi would agree, and she can speak on this herself too, that again, when you have to see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of films, even though it's hard to identify with specificity like what it is about this that clearly shows the filmmaker had to tell this story in this way, it's apparent. Like, it's apparent when the sincerity's there. I don't know if Heidi 100%. Wants to speak. Yeah.
No, it's very true. And I think there was I don't remember who said earlier that does the film need to be like something about, does the film need to be higher budget? Is that better? Or, something like that. It doesn't matter. I've shown films that are zero budget.
Yep.
And inevitably they don't look as polished and they don't have that slick look. But my God, sometimes you have to show it because it's so goddamn good. Anyway, talent will come out in the art, no matter what your limitations are. That it's just because you don't have the fantastic camera doesn't mean suddenly you're not going to be able to make a good movie. Your movie is good because of what your talent, what you put into it, and what you wrote, or what you're directing, and everything around can enhance that. But like a painting, your tools don't matter as much as the talent behind it. I truly believe that. So, I don't know why. I don't know where. I think I'm getting tired. I was like, where did that tangent? He said something else.
That was kind of full circle to what we were talking about, because I think when you're making, the first, what Christian was talking about earlier, what he was a DP on for something we had done, submitted it to one film festival, Screamfest. It didn't get in. And after it didn't get in, the thought was, oh, well, it's not either good enough, it's too cheap, blah, blah, blah. It went to one festival, didn't go anywhere else. The next thing we did was Delivery, which went to,
I didn't do it, but you guys did.
But the point is, it went to over a dozen film festivals across the country and the world, really. And so I think the thing you learn is that it's not that one was, maybe objectively one was better than the other, but I think ultimately what you learn is just that you're going to make something, and the hardest thing you can try to gauge when you're making something is talent. But for Adam and I, like when we sit down and watch a film, it's very easy to like. Sometimes I always say the first shot I can tell if a filmmaker knows what they're doing. I always say
exactly.
when I watch when I read the
Exactly.
first page of a script, I usually go, "Oh, I know this person knows what they're doing." It doesn't mean you're going to like the story, but at least you know what they're doing.
Yep.
Yes.
And I
Right
always
from the
say
start.
that. I always say that from the very first. I forget. I forget the filmmaker, but the first film they did was Shotgun Stories. It was the guy that did. He did Midnight Special and Loving, and I forget his name, but he's a filmmaker from Arkansas. But I watched the Shotgun Stories, and I watched the first couple of shots. They're just establishing shots, and I'm like, whoa, this is very unique. This is very interesting. You just could see it, and I think that's the hardest thing to tell a filmmaker is just that bring yourself to it, because you will make a different film than this person, than that person, than that person, and that's really the biggest thing that's going to separate it is your point of view. And I think it's very easy to just go, well, what do they want to see? And what they want to see versus what you bring
What you want to show
are two different things.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Brian. It's interesting you say that because going back to what you said a couple of minutes ago about the conversation you had about in regards to PTSD. You just made a comment about it. I remember that conversation we had with some of the programmers at LA Film Festival, and I think it's important as filmmakers who have made films that have been accepted at film festivals. You have to understand that. You make a movie that's about PTSD and you spent 2 years making this movie, you have to realize that your movie, if it's submitted to a festival that gets a lot of submissions, is probably not the only movie that is about PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
They probably have 15 of them. You know what I mean? Even though you feel like, oh, so that's where perspective comes in. Like, what's your perspective? What makes your film unique? If you're not only going up, you're submitting and they only have 70 films they're accepting and they get 6,000 submissions, 15 of which are PTSD movies. You know what I mean? Like, what's your perspective? What are you saying?
Yeah.
What is your point of view? That's going to differentiate you to the programmers. Again, it's got to be good, and it's got to be. But by just telling your story and giving them your point of view, I would say you would up your chances, just because it's like going back to what you were saying. It's genuine. It feels genuine. It feels like this is a story that only you could tell, as opposed to just
Yeah, so I think it's about time we wrap this up, as we could all eventually head to bed, since it took us forever to figure out how to get this technology together. Yeah, go for it, Heidi. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, so Miguel, before you guys let us in on the conversation, Miguel and I were talking, and there's a big elephant in the room, which is that the COVID has kind of changed.
Yes.
I was thinking this was going to come up.
So anybody listening to this, I want them to be aware that we're aware of that. And that's significantly going to change the roles that the film festivals and films play for audiences, not in a ticket buying way. So we're not sure where that's going to go. It means some film festivals might disappear. They might opt to disappear because they can't compete, or everything might go online or be both, and filmmakers might lose a lot of opportunities to show their films because of these other film festivals closing. So it's just something to keep in mind, that everything we're talking about is definitely relevant, but we are at a really strange little threshold.
Everything's up there.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Like, for instance, my festival, Etheria, is going to go virtual this year because
That's great.
Our theater is not going to be. We did it at the Egyptian. It's not going to be open. It's not. There's not enough time for it to get ready. So we're exploring other options. But that's true for a lot of festivals my size and even a little bit bigger. So yeah, filmmakers might have some interesting choices to make soon.
Yeah.
Can I ask a really quick question? I'm sorry, Christian. I know this to
Oh yeah, go ahead.
keep this going.
Yeah.
So as we talked about a little bit earlier, I think maybe either off camera or off record or on record, there's so many different genre film festivals. What was it that what made you two to say, okay, this is a niche or this is a little niche, whether it's geographical or topical? What made you say, I'm going to throw my hat into the ring and get into this thing? Because they're not easy to run. They're time consuming.
No, they're not.
No,
You'd be surprised.
I've ruined my life.
So what made you say, like, what was the the little like crevice that said, I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to grow this thing. What made you, both of you decide to just go in there and just give it a shot?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So Etheria specifically is for women directors with genre films. Yeah, I started this festival. I started programming a different festival in 2007 called Viscera, and it was for women who made horror films. That was more of a rare thing back in 2007, and it morphed over time, and now it's Etheria, and it's horror, sci-fi, fantasy, action, thriller, directed by women. So it's not just, the producer, because now pretty much if you have a festival where it's like, oh, the producer has to be a woman or the writer has to be, you've got a film festival like any other, because women are making all these films and producing all these films. So we were like, shit, we got to narrow this shit down. Yeah. So now it's directors. And one of the reasons we wanted to do that specifically is it's getting better now, but there are a lot of people making genre films who have opportunities to hire directors who do not hire women. And it's not because they're bad people or, not want to hire women because they hate women or something like that. But the answer that I usually get is, I don't know any. We had to get somebody in there fast. I don't know any women directors. I don't know where to find them. I'm sure there are some. I didn't see any of the festivals I went to this year that had the particular genre skills we were looking for. So I said, well, guess what? I know them all, and I see their films, and I'm gonna watch all 1,500 films, so you don't have to. And I'm gonna curate the best of them in a block. And so the purpose is to get these specific filmmakers who are very, very talented directors who could tomorrow walk on the set of, a TV show and direct, or walk into a Marvel sequel if they wanted to and direct that. Like, they have that level of skill, but they just haven't had their success or been recognized in the way they should yet. And we show those films to our audience, but we also show them to showrunners, executives, managers, agents, anybody who's in a position to help somebody get a job or bring recognition to somebody. So that's a big part of our audience too. So that's really the main reason for my festival. And it's genre because I don't like the non-genre films. I don't like, I just like that stuff. So that's why I want to show that stuff. Yeah. And there's a need for it. They want to, if you want to hire women for shit and you want to hire good women, you need to know who they are and what their work looks like. So.
I mean, the first 10 years of my film career, from 1995 to 2005, I was working under some of the most amazing, powerful women executive producers of The Tonight Show, and the director, executive producer, pretty much all the bosses were women, and but you don't see it in film as much, it's more of like a TV thing where they maybe felt safer back in the day to kind of work their way into the TV world.
I'm not going to say that there's never, that like sexism isn't a big problem. It is.
Oh,
racism is a big problem. Yeah. All this shit's a big problem. But I think on a personal level, the personal reasons why people are individually not being hired for things really has to do with people hire their friends. Mm-hmm. And people are friends with people that remind them of them and that like them. For instance, if I was in charge of a show tomorrow, I'm the showrunner, more than half the crew would be women, because that's who I know. That's who I'm friends with. And probably most of them would be white women, because I know a lot of white women. We're very similar. And so men who have traditionally been in these positions of power, they're like, who do I know who's really good at this? Who do I know who I've worked with?
Who looks
before?
Like me.
And it happens to be other guys. And it's like, you hire people that you trust and you like and you've worked with before. And we all trust and like and work with people that we feel comfortable with and we're similar to. So we all have to make, and women too, white women, everybody has to make a conscious effort to go, I need to just look at everybody, because maybe I'm missing out on some amazing talent. Nobody should ever be hired because of their gender. People should only be hired based on their talent, but nobody should be passed over because of their gender or race either. So
exactly. All right. So so we have filmmakers versus film festival directors and programmers. This has been great. Like, do you guys have any final words to say against each other or for each other?
It's pretty run-of-the-mill answer is that it's what I grew up with, and it was my entrance into cinema. And my mom and my grandmother showed me everything from a very young age. on Facebook, someone posted like, "What's the movie that messed you up as a kid?" And everybody's putting like Pinocchio. And I put Salo, the 120 Days of Salo.
Shit, yeah.
That would have messed a lot of us up as children.
Everybody was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "I think I was like 8."
What?
Yes. And I
Holy
saw Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer the year it
Wow.
came out. So I must
Wow.
have been 1986. I think I was 9 when I saw Henry. I think the movie I remember my mom feeling some regret about, even
Possibly,
more,
yeah.
was Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, because it was so real.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there are a lot of stories about my grandma telling me very gory, bloody, detailed horror stories on her lap when I was like 3. So it's just something I grew up with. But I am a classic movie fan. Like, I love old musicals, and I love pre-code, and
Yeah.
I love film
I
noir.
love pre-code. That's my second favorite genre. Yeah.
I did a whole year of pre-codes with my rep series that I do in San Diego last year. They just showed 3 great ones on TCM last night.
Oh.
So, but my entrance was definitely with cult horror, crazy stuff. And I do feel like, because with horror earlier, Brian, I think it was, talked about like how you can kind of drop your pretensions a little bit with this, because it's a stigmatized genre. Because you can drop your pretensions, it also means you can talk about your fears and uncomfortable things with a little bit more candor. And I registered that at an early age. Like, it is how I survived some weird shit growing
You
up.
probably wrote a lot of stories as a kid too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
About
those situations.
When I was a real young kid, I had a friend, went to his house, and his dad had a shitload, like a huge movie collection on VHS. And I remember, like, everybody like looks up to, I don't know, like Michael Jordan or something. I looked up to that. I was like, oh my God, one day I'm gonna have a collection like that. I'm gonna show all my friends. And it turned into a film festival ultimately.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. That's how it works out. All right, everyone.
We let Christian go to bed.
No, I have to pee. I mean, I'll keep talking. I gotta pee, so that's the main thing, the main motivation. And
Go
these two
pee,
guys, Adam and well, actually, three of the 5 of us have children, so they might have problems.
My girl's already, she's been
five.
asleep. She sleeps through the.
You're gonna be up at 5 in the morning, but
That's true.
we can keep going. I don't mind.
I don't have kids, but I'm tired. So I'm tired anyway.
I get it.
All right, everyone.
I got the work. I have to
yeah.
work in the morning. The COVID work from home. So
I'm probably annoying my girlfriend enough after 2.5 hours of So thank you all, Adam, Brian, Heidi, Miguel. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
I hope to have you guys all back and
We could do another 3 hours.
anytime. It's just super fun. You guys are really fun to talk to.
Yeah.
And
Been
I have
fun.
tons
Thanks
of
for
questions
coordinating.
for you about your work. So I'll probably just email you.
Bug
Please do.
these guys, befriend each other on the Facebook and all that, and everyone else, make sure to follow these guys on their respective social media networks, and yeah, I'm gonna go pee.
Heading to do that now.
I'm going pee.
Go
He's gonna go.
Go pee.
Right.
And so, as you
Thanks,
speak, I'm
Christian.
sure.
All right, guys, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you all for listening to My Favorite Horror Movie. Please subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and catch our videos on YouTube. All of those links and ways to pick up our books are at myfavoritehorrormovie.com. My Favorite Horror Movie is a Black Vortex Cinema production. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon, evil ones.